First, he thought it was a growl in the still darkness of the shelter in the middle of the night. His eyes came open and he thought there was a growl, but it was the wind. Medium wind in the pines had made some sound that up brought him awake. He sat up and was hit with the smell. It terrified him. The smell was one of the some musty rot they made that made him think only of graves, which cobwebs and dust and old death. His nostrils winded and opened his eyes wider and could see nothing. It was too dark, too hard dark, with the clouds covering the small light from the stairs and could see, but the smell was alive, and full. And in the shelter, he thought of the bears, of a Bigfoot, and every monster he had ever seen, in every fright movie he had ever watched, and his heart hammered in the throat. Then he started the slid. Then he heard slithering, a brushing sound near his feet, and he kicked out as hard as he could, kicked out, and through the shit sounded noise. A noise came coming from his throat, but the hatches missed and sailed into the wall, where it hit the rock with a shower of sparks, and was instantly torn with pain, as if 100 needles had been driven into the. Now he screamed with pain and fear and skittered on his backside up into the corner of the shelter, breathing through his mouth, straining to see, to hear. The slithering moved again. He thought towards him at first, and terror took him, stopping his breath. He felt he could see a low, dark form, a bulk in a darkness, a shadow that lived, but now it moved away, slithering and scraping it. It moved away, and he saw, or thought he saw, it go out of the door opening. He lay on his side for a moment, then pulled a grasping breath in and held it, listening for the attacker to return. When it was that the shadow wasn't coming back, he felt the calf at his leg. Pain was centered and spreading to fill the whole leg. His fingers gingerly touched a group of needles that had been driven through his pants and into the fleshy part of his calf. They were stiff and very sharp on the ends that stuck out, and he knew then what the had been. A porcupine had stumbled into shelter, and when he had kicked in the thing, it had slapped him with a tail of quills. He touched each quill carefully. The pain had, it seemed as if a dozen of them had been slammed into his leg, but there were only 8 pins left against his skin. He leaned back against the wall. For a minute. He could leave them in. They had to come out, but just touching them made the pain more intense. So fast, he thought, so fast. It's changed when he'd gone to sleep. He had satisfaction in just a. It was all different. He grasped one of the quills, held his breath, and jerked. Pain his brain in tight waves, but he grabbed, pulled it, and another quill. Stopped for pain. The spread, hot. His leg, catch his breath. Some of the quills were and deeper than others, and they were came out. He breathed deeply twice, let half of the breath out, and went back to work. Jerked, and three more times before he laid back in the darkness. Done. The pain filled his leg now, and with it came new waves of self-pity. Sitting alone in the dark, his leg yet some mosquitoes finding him again. He started crying. It was all too much, just too much, and he could take it not the way it was. I take it this way alone with no fire in the dark, and next time I might be something worse. Maybe a bear, and I would be just quills in my leg. Would be worse. I can't do this. He thought again and again. I can't. Ryan pulled himself up until he was sitting upright, back in the corner across his knees with stiffness, taking his left leg and till he was cried out. He did not know how long it took, but later he looked back on this time of crying in the corner of the dark cave and thought it as when he learned the most important rule of survival, which was that feeling sorry for yourself didn't work. It wasn't just that it was wrong to do, or that it was considered incorrect. It was more than that. It didn't work. When he sat alone in darkness and cried and was alone, was done, was all done with it. Nothing had changed. His leg still hurt. It was still dark. He was still alone, and the self-pity and accomplished nothing. At last he slept again, but already his patterns were changing. And the sleep was light, a resting dose for him. Then a deep sleep with a small sound awaking him twice in the rest of the night. In the last doze period before daylight, before he awakened finally with a morning light in the clouds of new mosquitoes, he dreamed his time. It was not of his mother, not of the secret, but of his father at the first, and then his friend Terry. In the segment of the dream, his father was standing at the side of the living room looking at him. It was clear from the expression that he was help Ryan something. His lips moved, but there was no sound, not a whisper. He waved his hands at Brian, made gestures in front of his face as if he were scratching something, and he worked to make a word with his mouth, but at first Brian could not see it. Then the lips made a but no sound came. Brian could not hear it, could not understand it, and he wanted to so badly. It was so important to understand his father, to know when what he was saying. He was trying to help, trying so hard, and when Ryan could understand, he looked across the way he did when Brian asked questions more than once, and he faded. Brian's father faded into a fog place. Brian could see, and the dream was also over, or seemed to be, when Terry came. I still got a ton to read.